The sword is perhaps the most recognizable symbol of the Middle Ages, shrouded in an endless number of legends. We are used to seeing them in the hands of epic heroes who easily cleave through rocks and heavy armor, but over hundreds of years, mass culture has distorted reality so much that we have almost forgotten what this tool was actually like. Today, we will break down the 5 most persistent myths about the medieval sword that prevent us from seeing the truth. Let's start with the myth of the enormous weight of swords. One often hears that a knightly sword weighed 5, 10, or even 15 kilograms. Some seriously believe that a sword was swung like a heavy club, using only inertia and brute force. In reality, a typical one-handed sword weighed only between 1 and 1.5 kilograms. Even massive two-handed swords, which seem unliftable, rarely weighed more than 3 kilograms. Masters of the past understood that speed and balance on the battlefield were more important than excessive mass. If a sword weighed 10 kilograms, a warrior would be exhausted after the first minute of combat. Heavy weapons make you slow and significantly decrease stamina. The balancing of the sword allowed it to be controlled with incredible precision and ease.
The second myth is imposed on us by cinema. Every soldier in an army is armed with a sword. In movies, battles look like endless blade duels, but this is far from the truth. In reality, the king of the medieval battlefield was the polearm: spears, halberds, and poleaxes. A spear was much cheaper to produce, had a greater reach, and worked better in formation. For a knight, the sword was more of a status symbol and a secondary weapon. It was drawn only when a spear broke or the fight turned into a tight scuffle. The sword was worn on the belt specifically as a backup option for emergencies. For a common infantryman, a sword was an unaffordable luxury, available only to a few. Moving on to the most spectacular misconception, the sword's ability to cut through everything in its path. In movies, a sword easily pierces plate armor. In reality, a sword was never sharpened to a razor edge along its entire length. An overly thin cutting edge would immediately chip or break upon the first impact with another blade or shield. Against high-quality plate armor, a sword was practically useless in terms of cutting blows. You could hack at a knight all day to no effect. To defeat an armored enemy, thrusts into the vulnerable gaps of the armor were used.
Many believe that medieval combat was a haphazard flailing of iron until exhaustion. The viewer is used to wide, slow swings that are easy to dodge. However, dozens of fencing treatises have survived, describing complex combat systems. Medieval fencing was a true science, combining physics, geometry, and psychology. Combatants used sophisticated feints, binds, joint locks, and even elements of wrestling. Swordmasters studied for years so that their movements would be as efficient and deadly as possible. A fight often lasted only a few seconds, as the price of a mistake was too high. Finally, the fifth myth is the belief in the absolute reliability and indestructibility of the blade. Legends of swords passed down through generations that remained perfect are a beautiful fiction. In reality, a sword was a consumable item, albeit a very expensive one. Steel at that time often contained impurities that made the blade brittle, especially in the cold. After every serious battle, a sword would be covered in notches that required long sharpening sessions. A blade could bend from a heavy blow or simply snap at the worst moment due to hidden defects. Regular cleaning to prevent rust was a vital necessity, otherwise the weapon would quickly become useless. Swords were lost, broken, reforged into more modern shapes, or simply worn out from constant maintenance. Many museum exhibits have reached us today, but in their time, they were working tools with a limited lifespan. The medieval sword is not a magical artifact. It was lightweight, technologically advanced, and required immense skill to use effectively. That's all for today. Give a like if you want a second part, and see you next time.